Welcome into PFF HQ. Austin Gayle here with Mike Renner, an underrated PFF analyst, talking underrated players today. Mike recently wrote an article discussing the NFL's most underrated players, and I want to start at the quarterback position. A guy that just got paid a lot, but still underrated when you compare him to the rest of the league, Russell Wilson.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, in our eyes, a surefire top 5 quarterback in the NFL. The raw totals never going to do him justice. The arguments against him, always had a great defense, always had a great running game, but the fact that a lot of people don't necessarily understand or doesn't get included in the conversations is that Russell Wilson makes that running game a great running game. He averaged, the Seahawks last year used more read option runs than any team in the NFL. On those option runs, 4.7 yards per carry. Non-option runs, they had 4.3 yards per carry. That's a vast difference. The reason why they were able to run the ball so well, so effectively, and so much is because of Russell Wilson's legs, the threat he poses to opposing defenses.
I'd say overall, running from the quarterback position is an underrated trait. I think we're looking at Lamar Jackson, even Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. That ability to scramble and extend plays, of course, but also gain yards with your feet when the defense isn't expecting run is pivotal. Moving to the running back position, James White, a guy that Eric Eager at one point in the season called the MVP. If you were going to name a running back as an MVP, just great in the passing game. Talk to me about him.
Now, there's a little hyperbole. Probably not the MVP among all running backs, but I think a lot of running backs in the New England system sort of get all treated the same. It's like this running, cog, just another link in the chain. They just get treated as replaceable in that system, and league-wide, that kind of is the case. A lot of running backs are replaceable. What really separates, what the data suggests separates running backs is their receiving ability. The ability to split wide, run wide receiver routes, and that's so pivotal for the New England offense. He is such a key part of that offense, and there's a reason why there's this rotation of New England running backs we've seen over the Bill Belichick era, but James White's going to be there through the 2021 season. He is already in his 6th year in the NFL with the New England Patriots. Is because he's so important to when they go in these heavy sets, 2 tight ends, fullback, James White in there as well, and they can go from that to all of a sudden 5 wide, and James White can be a focal point out of the slot in that offense. 87 catches last year, 751 yards. He is so versatile. What he brings to the table is so important to the New England Patriots. He gets underrated in that offense.
And with the running back position, it's more than catching passes out of the backfield. It's more than being a good pass catcher. You need to be versatile in that you can run routes from the slot or get split out wide. You look at some of the most valuable running backs in the NFL last year, Alvin Kamara and Tariq Cohen, they both had the most snaps away from the backfield among running backs because they're able to affect the offense, positively affect the offense from different positions, makes them versatile and makes them valuable. Going to a wide receiver that's very underrated, a guy I wrote about recently for ProFootballFocus.com, Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks, a guy that splits his snaps pretty much from the slot and outside, but really had a great season last year and should be having even a better one in 2019.
Yeah, I think it's underrated because Seattle, for the same reason Russell Wilson is, they don't pass. In that offense, the most run-heavy team in the NFL last season. Hasn't cracked 1,000 yards in a single season, but to me, he's one of the best route runners in the NFL. If you go back and watch the tape, gets open deep at an extremely high level. And if you look at his efficiency metrics, had the highest passer rating when targeted we've ever seen from a wide receiver. And in fact, you can't get any higher. He had a perfect 158.3 passer rating when targeted. And his yards per route higher than guys last year like Adam Thielen, Juju Smith-Schuster, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, Antonio Brown, Stephon Diggs. He is more efficient on a per route basis than those guys. He just, they didn't pass a lot. That's the only thing. That's the only thing keeping them from the big numbers in the raw receiving totals.
Efficiency is king with Tyler Lockett. You look at his yards per target number since entering the league, best in the NFL. Yeah. Yards per target last year, best single season mark we've seen in the NFL. From the slot, the best. From the outside, the best. This guy from a yards per target, yards per route run basis is so efficient, and it's because he's a great route runner, and Seattle just hasn't taken advantage of it. With DK Metcalf added to the mix, I think maybe Tyler Lockett still, though, with Doug Baldwin retiring, gets a bigger, maybe the lion's share of the targets, of a small targets percentage, just because Seattle doesn't pass the ball. But I'm excited to see him in 2019. Going into the trenches, offensive tackle, a guy that shouldn't be underrated, David Bakhtiari.
Yeah, David Bakhtiari. I think those in the know, those that really watch offensive line play, don't have him underrated. He has been an All-Pro, was the first-team All-Pro left tackle this past year, but 3 All-Pro selections over the course of his career, not a single Pro Bowl selection. The fans, the general public, guys, get out there. David Bakhtiari, the best pass-blocking left tackle in the NFL today. Over the past 4 years, has a higher pass-blocking grade over that span than Joe Thomas did towards the end of his career. So he is the gold standard for pass protection. Get to know the name. Get that man in a Pro Bowl, man.
Staying in the offensive line, Ali Marpet. I know this is a guy you loved coming out and you see getting better with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think maybe even predicting a breakout year for Ali Marpet in 2019.
Yeah, I only got to watch him at the Senior Bowl back when he was coming out, and he dominated at that game. Came into the NFL and it hit the ground running, even coming from Hobart, D3, all the way making that jump to the NFL. Did not look out of place year one, and over the past three seasons, over his 3-year career in the NFL, is 82.1 overall grade, ranks 11th among all interior offensive linemen in the NFL. So get to know Ali Marpet. Not a great Bucs offensive line, but he's carrying it.
Moving to the defensive side of the ball, David Onyemata of the New Orleans Saints did just get suspended for week 1, but this is a guy last year with Sheldon Rankins, a nice little tandem in New Orleans, and he produced pretty well.
Yeah, Onyemata, we love what we've seen from him in terms of the progression of his career. Coming from the University of Manitoba, coming from Canada, he didn't hit the ground running like Ali Marpet did. He took a little bit longer to get going, 57.2 grade as a rookie, 71.6 in year 2. 81.2 though this past season, really took that jump into the quality starter level, but then down the stretch from week 5 on, 89.1 overall grade. I think when he comes back after that suspension for marijuana in week 2, I think we're going to be seeing one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. Probably in that tier of the Mike Daniels' Kawan Shorts. I think he is firmly going to be in that tier in year 4 here.
Big things coming for Onyemata. Very excited to see that. A name I know how to pronounce, Olivier Vernon of the Cleveland Browns, traded to the Cleveland Browns, an underrated edge defender, maybe because he doesn't get the sack totals and the pressure totals of some of the other top names, Khalil Mack, Von Miller, but still a guy that produces a high level specifically as a pass rusher.
And I think it's a lot to do with the contract he got. 5 years, $85 million, was never going to live up to that. So as soon as he doesn't produce, double-digit sacks every single year, Giants fans are going to hate him, and Giants fans did hate him, even though this past season still had an 86.3 overall grade. He's going to go to the Cleveland Browns and be one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And the underrated thing about it is he plays for the Giants in that division he was in, rushing against left tackles, the most difficult assignment of any pass rusher in the NFL, going up against Jason Peters, Trent Williams, Tyron Smith 6 times a year. Go to the AFC North now, rushing from the opposite side, because they got Myles Garrett there rushing against left tackles, going up against the right tackles in the AFC North. You got, Orlando Brown there, Bobby Hart. It's going to be a lot easier sledding for him. I expect a big year from Olivier Vernon.
That's great. And a linebacker, very underrated, specifically because you don't realize how good he is as a coverage linebacker. Yes. Philadelphia Eagles, Zach Brown.
Yeah, he gets underrated even by NFL teams. The Washington Redskins just cut him this offseason after he finally got his due, a 3-year, $21 million deal. Gets cut 1 year into that deal, even though he was the 3rd highest graded linebacker in the NFL last season, behind Bobby Wagner and Luke Kuechly. Over the last 4 seasons, he ranks top 15 in both run defense and coverage grade over that span. I don't know why he gets underrated. Freakish athlete. The Eagles got themselves a good one. Very lucky to have him. Crazy to me that he's still, that he was had for that cheap.
There's another guy on this list that maybe the NFL is sleeping on too that we'll get to, but starting with Detroit Lions cornerback Darius Slay, a guy that gets underrated with the Jalen Ramseys of the world, and Patrick Peterson even taking some going ahead of him. But Darius Slay, specifically an outside cornerback for the Detroit Lions, has played super well in recent years.
Yeah, doesn't have the freakish sort of athleticism of some of those guys. Doesn't talk a ton of trash like some of those guys as well. But when you're debating, top 10 cornerbacks, Slay's name rarely gets mentioned in that breath, even though he should be. 90.5 coverage grade over the last 4 seasons. His lowest single season over that span is 77.0, which to me is very impressive because we see how fickle the cornerback position can be. 4 to 5 bad reps, 4 to 5 big plays over the course of a season can swing, the perception of your season so much. And so for him to be that consistent, having tracked number 1 receivers over that span, did it, I think, 10 times this past year. He tracked opposing number 1 receivers. To do that is very impressive. And I just think playing for the Detroit Lions, haven't had a good defense, but it's not been because of Darius Slay. He's been holding his own there on the back.
And with Darius Slay specifically last year, I dove in the numbers a little bit for an article on the site and saw that at outside corner, he earned a top 3 coverage grade. When he got moved into the slot, it brought him down a little bit. It was that tracking that maybe, not necessarily out of position, but when you track a number 1 receiver in the slot, like a Julio Jones or some of these other receivers that are playing well from the slot nowadays, it makes things difficult. And I think Darius Slay, if you can find a way to keep him outside corner, obviously there's certain number 1 receivers you want him to track, but at outside corner, he's really one of the best in the biz, and I think that gets underrated as well. Trey Boston, safety, very underrated. So underrated for the fact that he's not even on a roster right now. He needs to be on a defense.
Yeah, he has an 82.2 overall grade over the past 2 seasons, 14th highest among safeties. It's comical to me that he's not on a roster right now with how many teams we see playing 3 safeties at a time. Getting 3 safeties on the football field on 50+% of the snaps, it is becoming a value add position, that third safety, and even teams need second safeties on their roster. Trey Boston is a starting caliber safety in the NFL right now, a quality starting caliber safety. The fact that he's unsigned when coverage is king in the NFL, so there's something I don't know out there about why he's unsigned. Someone needs to inform me as to why.
If you're an NFL GM out there, you got to go out and sign Trey Boston. For everyone else, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more videos from Mike and myself, or better yet, go ahead and go to the site at profootballfocus.com.